the following process will occur. I will briefly outline the purpose of the application or applications, and the applicant or agent will be given the opportunity to make a presentation. However, one is not required. It is the applicant's decision whether they wish to speak or let the application proceed on the merits of the information as received. Following any initial comments from the applicant, I will invite members of the public who have an interest in the application to come forward and address the committee. Those members of the public who wish to speak must clearly state their name and address and sign the corresponding request for notice form on the table, which is in front of us here on my left. After completing the form, please hand it to the Secretary-Treasurer. Each individual may speak only once on an issue, and once discussion has commenced in respect of a motion, no further presentation shall be made. If you require any assistance with regards to visual material or technical assistance, please let me know before making any presentation. This is a public meeting, and it is being audio and video recorded. Your name, address, and comments, and any other personal information are being recorded according to the Municipal Act and the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. This will help our town clerk prepare accurate minutes and to create a record that is available to the general public, including the town's website. Questions about this collection should be directed to the town clerk. Please be advised that the reports being considered tonight are also available on the desk in front of us here. Should you wish to receive notification of any of the decisions for tonight's meeting, please complete the appropriate form. Owners and agents will automatically be notified. Please ensure that all questions and/or comments are directed through me as the chair, and if relevant, I will request the appropriate person respond. It should be noted that the applicant will be given the opportunity to respond to any questions or comments should the committee feel that it is appropriate. So we'll commence the meeting. There's an administrative step that should take place before we look at the agenda, and that is to confirm Antonio Greco as the new Secretary-Treasurer of this committee. And so I would look to the committee to bring a motion forward.
Also move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and that's seconded by? Seconded by David, and all in favor?
Welcome.
Congratulations, Antonio. All right, and I'll look to the committee for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, and seconded by?
All second.
Roy, thank you very much. And I'll look now to members of the committee. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? None, seeing none. Thank you. Item 4, I'll move on to adoption of the minutes. There are 2 sets of minutes before the committee tonight, and that's meetings number 1805 and 1806. So I'll look to a member of the committee for any changes, corrections, and or approval of those. Hank?
I move to or recommend approval of the Committee of Adjustment minutes of meeting number 1805 with one amendment to delete reference to my arrival at 7:02, and also recommend approval of meeting number 1806.
Any questions on the correction? None? So is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. All in favor? That's approved. So we'll move on to presentation of the applications. So the first one before us this evening is minor variance MV 2018-14A and B. I think on the staff report at the top where it refers to purpose of the application, there's a typo there. It is not MV 2018-11, it is 14A and B. The applicant is requesting relief from the requirements of the Town of Aurora zoning bylaw 6000-17 as amended to permit the construction of a new two-story, 558 square meter detached residential dwelling on the subject lands. The existing detached one-story dwelling is proposed to be demolished. However, the accessory structures located at the rear of the property are proposed to remain. The proposed minor variance application was deferred by the committee at the June 6, 2018 meeting. The purpose of the deferral is to allow the applicant to reconsider the proposed side yard setbacks. The applicant has reduced the size of the building footprint and does not require any variances to the side yard setbacks. As such, the applicant have decreased the number of requested variances down to 2. I'm going to flip over to the original for some background as to what then remains. So application MV 2018-14A is to permit the construction of a detached residential dwelling unit, whereas the zoning bylaw states that where a zone symbol followed by ORM, no person shall use the land, including expanding, enlarging, or otherwise altering an existing use, building, or structure for any other use legally existing as of November 15th, 2001, and application MV 2018-14B to permit the construction of a detached residential dwelling within a Category 1 landform conservation area, thereby requiring a variance. Those are the only two that are left for consideration. Planning Division, no comments subject to condition. Building Division, no comments received. Engineering Division, no comments. Operational Services, no comments subject to conditions. Central York Fire, no comments received, and no comments received from Electra or York Region. Is the applicant here? Did you wish to make any presentation or wish to provide the committee with any additional information at this time? Thank you very much. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this application? Please come forward and please give us your name and your address, please. You may have to press the little red button. Oh, it's on there. Go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Graham Constantine, and I live at 212 Ridge Road, which is immediately adjacent on the west side, and I've lived there since 1972. I'm glad to see that the applicant has agreed to some form of tree protection. That was one of my biggest concerns, and I'm also glad to see that the setbacks are now in line with the bylaw. I have just one question, and that is, it's proposed that the accessory structures located at the rear of the property are proposed to remain. Now, I don't know how you've defined an accessory structure. One of them is a small barn-type structure. The other is a fully functional residential unit that was rented out and has been rented out until May 31st of this year. I don't know whether that's an accessory structure. It has its own little septic tank. It has its own, it's supplied by electricity from the main house, and it's water from the main house. And it is fully functional. It was renovated about 6 or 7 years ago, and it is a nice little tiny house. And if that's an accessory structure, I want one of those. That's my comments, my questions. So it was the question of defining
Right.
what an
Accessory
accessory
structure.
structure. There's a fully functional residential unit down there. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I'll look to staff for a comment on accessory structure. If, I'm assuming that these structures may have existed prior to the coming into force, or have their own rights or their existence as of right. So if staff can comment on that.
Through the chair, the accessory structure can't have a dwelling unit in it under the zoning bylaw, and that's something that our bylaw division has looked at, and they have, I don't know all the details of it, but my understanding is that there was an action taken place for that residential unit, and it is now vacant, and that's a zoning enforcement issue that is separate from the variance, but that is something that is being or has been looked into by the staff of the town.
So to answer a little bit more broadly there, as this committee is looking at this application, there is no variance required that would either have an effect on our decision in terms of what we're looking at today. But I guess you can also just follow that up with staff going forward. Thank you. Is there anyone else with any comments on this application? I'll look to members of the committee for any comments or questions. Everyone okay? All right, so then I'll look to the committee for a motion on both applications. I'll point out that, or I'll just before we do that, is the applicant aware that there is a condition there? And are you, if so, are you aware that and agree to those conditions? There's recommendations in there. Have you seen the staff report? Yep. And you're okay with that? Okay. So I'll look to the committee for a motion. Go ahead, David.
Through the chair, I recommend that the two applications, MV-2018-14A and MV-2018-14B, be approved subject to the two conditions as written in the staff's report.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Hank. I'll call the question. All in favor? That is approved. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item is 325 Industrial Parkway. This is minor variance 2018-15A through E. And the purpose of the application, the applicant is requesting relief from the requirements of the Town of Aurora zoning bylaw 6000-17. The applicant proposes to permit a motor vehicle body shop within an existing building on the subject property with a reduced number of parking spaces and barrier-free spaces. In addition, the variants are sought for reduced dimensions for parking space and maneuvering aisle width. The future tenant of the building is Supreme Collision Center. The applicant is proposing to relocate the existing motor vehicle body shop located along Yonge Street to the subject site. So the purpose of application 2018-15A is to permit a motor vehicle body shop as a permitted use for the subject lands, thereby requiring a variance. Section 10.1 of the zoning bylaw does not include motor vehicle body shop as a permitted use. MV 2018-15B is to permit a reduced number, a reduced minimum number of 74 parking spaces, thereby requiring a variance of 13 parking spaces. Section 5.4 of the zoning bylaw requires 87 parking spaces. Section 5.8.2 of the zoning bylaw requires 4 barrier-free parking spaces. MV 2018-15C is to permit a reduced minimum number of 2 barrier-free spaces, thereby requiring a variance of 2 barrier-free parking spaces. Section 5.8.2 of the zoning bylaw requires 4 barrier-free parking spaces. MV 2018-15D is to permit a reduced minimum maneuvering aisle width of 5 meters, thereby requiring a variance of 2 meters. Section 5.3 of the zoning bylaw requires a maneuvering aisle of 7 meters when there is a 90-degree parking. MV 2018-15E is to permit a reduction to the minimum parking space dimensions of 2.7 meters by 5.1 meters, thereby requiring a variance of 0.2 meters for the depth of a required parking space. Section 5.2 of the zoning bylaw requires a parking space to have a minimum of 2.7 meters by 5.3 meters. Planning Division has no comments. Building Division, no comments were received. No comments were received from the Engineering or Operational Services. Central York Fire Services, no comments received, and no comments were received from Electric Utilities or York Region. Is the applicant with us this evening? Good evening. Welcome.
Mr. Chair and members of committee, my name is Bruce Hall, and I'm a partner with the Planning Partnership, and we are here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Supreme Auto Collision Center. I have with me tonight Mr. Martin Reddick, who's the principal. I will give you a presentation, and if there's any questions of myself or him relating to the business, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you.
I choose to give you a presentation on this tonight because it is a very big move for this company, and we want to do things right. So as you've indicated, the purpose of this application is to add a motor vehicle body shop as a permitted use, and then there are 4 other variances. And I will note that aside from the use variances, as you've noted, all the other variances relate to parking, and they are mostly to recognize existing conditions in the front of the building. There's a new parking area that's proposed in the rear, and all those parking spots and the aisles and the maneuvering areas will comply with the bylaw. So we're dealing with what we have in front of us, in front of the building, and then going forward, what's new will comply with the bylaw. So the current Supreme Auto Collision has been in Barrie, I was in Barrie the other day, in Aurora since 1974. They employ 10 to 12 people. They have other locations in Bolton and Thornhill. And their current location on Yonge is just north of Wellington and south of Machel. And they've really run out of space there. It's a small building, it's 5,000 square feet. They're a growing business, and they're quite constrained in terms of the interior of the building and the parking area. And the other thing that we have to consider is that that site is a historic mixed-use context, which is surrounded by residential uses. It's in with the promenade designation under the OP, and that area is really intended to be more of a vibrant pedestrian-oriented area and a compact mixed use. So, relocation of this facility, to an area that's more appropriate, we think is a good planning move aside from the variances that we require on the receiving end. You've seen some of these buildings that are going up in the promenade, and this is what we see happening on this site in the future potentially. But we're not here to talk about that. So, we believe that the relocation of the body shop will allow the promenade to achieve its vision and plan function. In terms of the new location, it's a 12,000 square foot building, so it's quite a step up in terms of an enlarged facility. All those uses will occur wholly within the building. nothing will happen out on the site itself except for storage of vehicles in the back, which is fully screened by the building itself. So you're not going to see vehicles that are awaiting work or awaiting pickup in front of the building. Those are only parking spots for people that are coming in to do business, customers. So, we see there's a lot of planning merit in allowing the relocation of the use to an area that's better suited, surrounded by similar and compatible uses. In terms of the official plan, the existing employment general designation is intended to protect older industrial areas, and it permits a wide range of employment uses, including manufacturing, assembly, storage of goods and materials, and it specifically permits, the official plan specifically permits automotive repair facilities. So it's our opinion that the proposed use is permitted, and it's consistent with the range of uses found within the designation within that South Industrial Parkway South employment area. In terms of the zoning bylaw, the E1 zone does not permit a motor vehicle body shop. It allows repair shops in a broader kind of category. A motor vehicle body shop is a permitted use within the E2 zone. And what we find is the E1 and E2 zones are basically interspersed throughout this employment area. We don't find any specific geographic focus for them. They're really recognizing existing uses. And some properties that are zoned E1 and E2 are located right beside each other. So it's not an issue where we're going to allow something that's not, wouldn't be permitted, next door or something like that. So in our view, it's compatible with the range of uses that are permitted or found throughout the employment area in terms of zoning. In terms of the variances themselves, aside from use, as I said, they're mostly to recognize the existing parking area in the front, to relate to the number of parking spots, and to relate to the size of the parking spaces and the aisle widths. In terms of the overall number of parking spaces, it's quite onerous because it's calculated on the overall area of the building being 12,500 square feet, and would result in 87 parking spaces being required, when in reality this is not a business where there's a lot of customers coming in on a daily basis. There's 10 or 20 cars that are being worked on at a time, and it's really a function of the area of the building. It's a building that's going to accommodate a lot of growth for this business over a period of time. So we looked at the existing business, we surveyed it, we applied the ratio to the new building, and this was supported by a comprehensive traffic transportation study prepared by NextTrans, who are a local consultant just down the street. And they concluded that the proposed parking supply is appropriate, and the engineering department concurred with that. In terms of the accessible or barrier-free spaces, there's 2 of them located at the very front, and they are calculated as a percentage of the overall parking spaces. So again, with a very large supply of parking comes the need for 4 under the bylaw. We're proposing 2. The traffic consultant believes that's adequate because, again, it's sort of more of a customer-oriented driven demand. In terms of the size of the drive aisle parking and parking spaces, those are variances D and E. Again, they relate only to the existing front parking area. We have 5 meters instead of 7 meters. We've done a turning analysis, which is basically an automatic calculation based upon standard turning radii, and the traffic consultant has said that it works. They asked for a few minor adjustments in terms of taking out a couple parking spots and a little sort of bump out area at the very end to allow vehicles that at the end parking spaces to back out and move out freely. In terms of the drive aisle width, the turning analysis says there's sufficient maneuvering room to negotiate, and the parking spot depths in those front parking spaces, we kind of were cheating a little bit, taking one from the other, and we sort of took a little bit from the drive aisle, a little bit from the parking spot. But again, the analysis determined that the 5.1 is sufficient for the sort of short-term parking that's going to occur there. So the overall conclusion of the transportation analysis was that the parking supply is sufficient and both passenger cars and trucks can safely navigate the site. I've prepared a very comprehensive letter in terms of the 4 tests. I'm not going to go through them. I'll just hit a summary. The use is permitted by the official plan and therefore conforms to and meets the intent of the OP. It conforms to the general intent of the zoning bylaw by protecting the employment areas and avoiding land use conflicts. The proposed standards provide for sufficient parking and room for vehicle maneuvering. The variance results in appropriate development by allowing both the continuation of an existing business and growth in that business, but at a better location. And by relocating this use from Yonge Street, it allows those lands to also achieve their planned function. And the change in the use and the minor reduction in the parking spaces and dimensions has little or no impact and is thus minor. It's my opinion that these variances collectively meet the intent and the four tests on the Planning Act, and this is supported by planning staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Appreciate that presentation, by the way. Much appreciated. I'll ask if there is anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this particular application. And seeing none, I'll look to members of the committee with questions or comments. So is there anyone with any questions or comments at this point? David? Roy, are you okay?
I'm okay.
Hank? Just a couple of, just wanted to pick up on a couple of minor things myself. Mr. Hall, your conceptual site plan here is a whole lot clearer than what was circulated to, so even better. I was going to ask you, where were those handicap parking spots? So they're right as you come in to the front there?
Oh. When you come in, if you hang a right and the spaces that are closest to the street, it's the first two spaces on the north side of the drawing.
Got it. Would that parking area there be for people coming in to have their vehicles looked at? I guess my question is that visitor parking or customer parking versus employee parking?
Yes, it's essentially visitor, customer. I believe the intent is that the employees will be parking at the back of the building.
And did I understand correctly, there's approximately 10 employees in total?
10 to 12.
10 to 12? Okay, so if we're looking at 10 to 12 staff and somewhere between 10 and 20 cars, the parking that you are actually providing would more than take care of that. And again, this is more out of my own curiosity here. Is the property fenced?
I believe it's fenced along the south side. There's a fence along the back. There's a gate to the property on Engelhard to the east. Is the north side? And the north side is fenced as well.
So the area where cars for repair would be placed would be in a fenced area? Okay, that's...
I think the way the current operation conducts itself is that there's a gate, and at night that gate is shut, so people can't go and pick cars.
Yeah, there's a couple of us here at this desk. I can tell you we're somewhat familiar with the auto industry, myself being one of them, and my colleague next to me here. So that questions are kind of almost more related to the operation of this particular business and some of the things that I've certainly seen in my limited time in the industry.
And Mr. Chair, just to answer your prior question to that, the traffic consultant, when they did their analysis, they took into account the employees as a factor of that parking because their cars would have been surveyed at the previous location. And you are correct, it is a very, I would say in fact it's oversupplied, but it's a new bylaw and the number is quite onerous in terms of the way that in reality this property gets used, but we just wanted to come as close as we could. And really it's a function of when we laid the parking area, we sort of arrived at a point where we thought, okay, that's a more than adequate number, and it makes for a very usable parking layout and setup.
Yeah, I think the other thing that you've mentioned that that certainly I think is going to bode well is the fact that certainly the use, although it's been in its current location for many years, having it relocate to Industrial Parkway, I think is going to make a lot of people quite happy, quite frankly. I'll park it there for myself, pardon the pun, and I'll look to the committee for a motion on this application. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I put forward a motion to approve applications MV 218, 15A through 15E as submitted.
Thank you. Seconder?
I'll second that.
Roy? Thank you. All in favor? That passes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next application is 40 Engelhart Drive, Unit Number 3, and this is minor variance 2018-16. The purpose of application 2018-16, the applicant is proposing a recreational center use in a building that contains industrial and warehouse uses, thereby requiring a variance. Section 10.1 of the zoning bylaw allows for recreation center provided that no other part of the building is used for industrial uses or warehouses. So this is to permit a recreational center in Unit 3 of a multi-premises building that does contain industrial and warehouse uses, thereby requiring a variance. I'll note that the property was subject to the following minor variances that have already been granted on the subject lands, and D130113 was for a fitness center in units 7 and 8, and D13-3109 for a fitness center, that was a yoga studio in unit number 5. So Planning Division has no comments. Building Division, no comments received. No comments were received from Engineering Division or Operational Services. Central York Fire Services, no comments received. Electra, no comments received. And York Region, no comments received. Applicant or agent? Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Brian Visser. I'm representing Tom Lawson. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here tonight. He's a full-time firefighter, and with the stuff that's going on in Toronto, he was not allowed to leave today. So I was called in at the last second, and I'll try to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. So no presentation. It's not required, and
Yep. Nope, sorry.
We'll
I
let
have
it
nothing.
stand on its own merits.
Yeah.
And with that, is there anyone from the public who wishes to address the committee on this application? Looking at the number of applications we have today and the number of people who are sitting here, I would doubt that there would be very many people from the public. All right, thank you, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Any comments or questions to the applicant on this particular application from committee? Any questions or comments? Yes, David.
Through the chair, just a comment maybe to staff. I may be wrong, but I think there have been similar applications as also listed here. When the variance is exclusively to one unit, usually you've put it as a condition that is only to that particular unit. But in here, you are making it just as a supplementary information. Would you just explain why?
Yeah, I think I went back on that to point out in the comments that it was specific to unit number 3.
Yeah.
And I think staff's intent, Marty, was to make it specific to unit 3.
Through the chair, you are correct. That was the recommended restriction in the planning comments, to have the variance applied exclusively to unit 3.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll just also point out in the internal memo, there was a typo there. In the memo, it referred to 2017-43. I think that was just a typo. I just picked that up when I was going through it myself. And that's likely something that we can add as to the motion, just to make sure that we cover that off, David. Did you have anything else, David? Roy?
I'm okay with David's, yeah.
You're okay with David's? Yep, Hank?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is a comment or question for staff. I look at the subject property and it's designated as existing employment, general industrial. And this is now going to be and I think there's 12 units on this site. And at this point in time, there's already 3 been approved, and this one would bring it to 4. Is there a point where the town would not be wanting any more units in this building to be moving towards these recreational type activities, and we'd want to be more restrictive in terms of providing employment opportunities?
Through the chair, the way that the zoning is set up for this type of use is that it's a permitted use, with the only exception being that it can't be in the same building as certain like warehouse and industrial uses. And the reason for that is to protect against any sort of incompatibility or building incompatibility between those 2 uses within the same building. And the variance allows the town to take a look at it to make sure that that isn't going to cause any problems. Usually in these types of situations, that's dealt with through the building permit application, so to make sure that there's no impact from one unit to another, to make sure that it complies with any sort of requirements that are part of the building code. So because it is permitted use as a main use, there wouldn't be any limit to how many units would be able to have those that use, subject to a variance essentially for each one.
Any other? To staff, I just want to make sure as well. I visited this property, and I've been there on the weekends. Parking is extremely tight on the weekends. To staff, has anyone gone through this to just verify that the uses certainly meet their requirements for parking?
Through the chair, the zoning staff looked at it when it came in for the preliminary zoning review to ensure that all of the parking and all of the other zoning provisions are just to see which zoning performance standards weren't being met. All the ones that did have any sort of that weren't being met were here for a variance, and they're identified as requiring a variance. So there's no issue in terms of zoning conformity to parking requirements.
And Marty, that would only be looked at for this particular application, for this particular unit, am I correct? It wouldn't be looked at a complete review, it would be just for this particular unit.
The application does get circulated to our parking and traffic analyst, and he had no objections or issues with this application.
Okay.
The traffic engineer was hired by Mr. Lawson, and it did pass a parking study.
Okay, thank you. All right, that supplemental, Hank? Yeah,
Yes,
go ahead.
supplemental, you've just tweaked my brain here. This is a comment for staff more than it is for the applicant. I was very surprised to see that there is street parking allowed basically between the entrance to the parking lot into this building westward to the tracks. That really surprised me. I see it's restricted going along Englehart to Industrial, but for whatever reason, the area which to me would be very dangerous for parking would be the area moving westward from that entranceway to the tracks. Do you want to make any comments, Mark?
Through the chair, if that's a concern, I can bring that up with the appropriate person who would deal with that in the engineering division for street parking, if that's something that could be a potential concern.
Yeah, thank you, Hank, for bringing it up, because when I raised the issue of parking on site, if you're there on the weekend, especially when the, not related to what you're doing, sir, but the yoga studio is particularly busy in their turnover. They've run back-to-back classes, I think, there, and they're very, very busy. And yeah, I've noticed that there is parking on the street there. So I'll look to committee members for a motion on this application. Go ahead, Hank.
Through you, Mr. Chair, put forward a motion to approve application MV 2018-16 with the added condition that it be applied only to unit number 3. And I'd also like to ask staff to bring it forward to the appropriate department regarding the traffic on Englehart.
And I'll look to the committee for a seconder. Seconded by David. And all in favor? And that carries. Thank you, sir. Moving along. Next application coming forward is 16 Hawthorne Lane. And this is minor variance 2018-17A through D. The purpose of the applicant is requesting relief from the requirements of the Town of Aurora zoning bylaw 6000-17 as amended. The applicant proposes to demolish the existing dwelling and replace it with a 2-story detached dwelling. Application 2018-17A is to permit a reduced minimum westerly interior side yard setback for the proposed 2-story detached dwelling to 1.8 meters, thereby requiring a variance of 1.2 meters. Section 7.2 of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum interior side yard of 3 meters. Minor variance 2018-12B, 17B, there's a typo there, to permit an eaves projection of 1.7 meters into the required westerly interior side yard, thereby requiring a variance of 1.0 meter. Section 4.20 of the zoning bylaw states eaves may project 0.7 meters into any required yard. MV 2018-17C to permit reduced minimum westerly side yard setback for the proposed accessory building to 1.2 meters, thereby requiring a variance of 1.8 meters. Section 7.2 of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum interior side yard of 3.0 meters. And the purpose of the application 2018-17D to permit an eaves projection of 1.5 meters into the required westerly interior side yard, thereby requiring a variance of 0.8 meters. Section 4.20 of the zoning bylaw states that eaves may project 0.7 meters into the required yard. And comments received from the planning division, none. No comments received from the Building Division. No comments received from the Engineering. Operational Services, no objections subject to condition. Central York Fire Services, no comments received. And no comments received from Electric Utilities or the region. Is the applicant or agent with us this evening? Good evening.
Yes, good evening. My name is Vanya Ochoborgo, and I'm here on behalf of Matthew Lanny and Angela Lanny, who are the owners of this property. I just wanted to mention that we have had an opportunity to read the staff report, and we have reviewed the conditions that are contained within the recommendation report. The owners will provide a letter of undertaking to guarantee compliance of those conditions.
Thank you very much. No further presentation required.
No, I'm here to answer any questions.
Questions?
If you have,
Love it.
if
Thank you.
Thank you.
So is there anyone here from the public who wishes to speak on this particular application? Seeing none, I'll look to members of the committee for comments and/or questions. Go ahead, David.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment. I can see that the existing interior setback of 1.8 is being maintained. My concern would have been the amount of space for grading or for runoff, but it seems to be okay for me. I think that's the only comment I can have. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Hank?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Am I mistaken, or did we not get any information on the proposed accessory building? I see the schematics which show the house, but I see no information in my package on any accessory
Yeah,
building.
I was going to ask about that. Is there a copy of the site plan, the full site plan there available that we can have a look at that would show that? Can you just walk us through that a little bit?
Yes, so this is the site plan for the proposed new residential unit. The accessory structure is at the rear of the property.
So just let me, so the street is out here on my right?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay.
And I also have an elevation if you wanted to see it. I'm not sure if that was provided in your package of the
No.
accessory structure.
No, and what is the accessory structure?
The accessory structure is for storage, a pool mechanical room, a lavatory, and a seating area. That's why it's a U-shaped. So I can show you the layout of that.
Okay. And why would it not be possible to meet within the bylaws? Why is it necessary to move this structure to the west and ask for variances both on the setback and on the eaves projection?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the proposed accessory structure would have to be set back 3 meters from the property line, and that would minimize the space between the accessory structure and the proposed pool. So in order to try to maximize the usable space in the backyard, they've asked for a reduction in the side yard setback. It complies with the rear yard setback, it's just the side yard setback of 1.2 versus the 3.
You okay? I guess...
Not really.
Is there a drawing that shows the location of the pool, the proposed pool?
This drawing does show the proposed location of the pool. It's a square box. They haven't finalized the exact shape of it, but that was drawn there to ensure that it does comply with the zoning provisions of setbacks to the structure to the rear yards as well.
Okay. And any other member of the committee with any questions? I've got a few, but go ahead, Roy, if you pull the mic down.
One question. I know we've approved a few houses on Hawthorne Lane recently. And this is another one seeking many, many variances. Sometimes I wonder, if you got a house and you're going to make the lot fit the house, instead of vice versa. I'm not happy with what, all these variances that we've been approving, but anyway, that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. David, any?
Just add to what I was saying. So for me, I always look from the engineering aspects of...
Of course.
Whether it's going to work in terms of runoff, in terms of if drafts, projection, discharging to the areas around the property. Looking at I mentioned about 1.8, I should have mentioned also about 1.2, which look at the swells. If you have to develop a swell, usually will not have problems with runoff. And that's just from my aspect, from my perspective.
Okay. I too, one of the things that I look at first when I'm looking at these applications is question 6 on the minor variance form, and it asks the question, why is it not possible to comply with the provisions of the bylaw? Your response kind of had me struggling. Your response was the new bylaw provisions are more restrictive than the previous bylaw provisions that were applicable to this property. So my question to you then would be, if this was looked at under the previous bylaw, would we be sitting here looking at a variance application?
No, because it would have complied with the previous bylaw. The new bylaw is more restrictive. The new structure being proposed will actually sit on in the same location of the existing foundation of the existing home. So we're not making any inherent changes to what is existing other than a new home being constructed.
Okay.
And the variances requested are listed in such a manner that it includes the setback of the structure, but also there are provisions in the bylaw which speak to encroachments, and that's where the eaves encroachment provision has to be included in the application.
Yeah, we typically, when we get these setbacks, the eaves are almost an automatic.
Yes.
Yeah, and that is what kind of drives a number of the add-ons to it. Okay. I'll look to the committee for a motion on this.
For the motion?
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
Have you prepared the arborist report at all?
Yes, we've retained an arborist, and they've prepared a report, and we are required to submit that as part of our application. And that is why I suggested that we would be able to comply with the conditions in the Committee of Adjustment recommendation.
So in that arborist report, does it talk about erosion control, fences,
Yes, it does.
something like that?
It speaks to erosion control, tree protection measures, any replacements that are required in compensation.
Okay.
So it will address all the requirements of the tree bylaw.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So again, I'll look to the committee if there is a motion coming forward. Go ahead, Hank, or go ahead, David.
Chair?
Absolutely.
I move that the applications 2018 17A through to 17D be approved with the one condition in the staff's report, and of course the second application 2018 12B be corrected.
17.
17, sorry, be corrected. It's written as 12B. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I picked up on that when I was going through reading the purposes of the applications, and I'm hoping that staff have picked up on that. I'll look to a committee for a seconder on that motion. So I see no seconder for that.
May I make a recommendation through the chair?
Yes, go ahead.
The applicant is willing to amend the application to remove the accessory structure, if that would be acceptable to the committee. we can make adjustments to that accessory structures to meet the intent and the bylaw provisions. They are still working out some design details for the rear yard pool design. Like I said, they're not sure if it's going to be square or rectangle, and they are actually thinking of maybe adjusting the orientation of it depending on sunlight. So we can work towards amending the application to remove the request for the accessory structure if that is of a concern to this committee.
Thank you for that. Staff, I'm going to look to Marty. Obviously, we can split this up. Am I correct?
Through the chair, that is correct. The committee can treat each variance individually.
Terrific. All right, so perhaps then, can we identify which ones then apply to the structure and which ones apply to the accessory? So 17A applies to the dwelling. 17B also applies to the dwelling. 17C, that applies to the westerly setback, that's the accessory building. And D applies to the accessory building as well. So let us go back, and I'll look to, oh, let me just stop there for 1 second. I'll ask the committee for comments on that secondary, on the proposed accessory structure, if that's where the major issue is. So, I mean, I would assume, Hank, that that's where your comments came from. David, is that your concern on this?
For me, I don't have any concern.
Okay.
Because I'm looking at the
Your initial motion.
1.2 meters being
Yeah.
more than enough from the runoff point of view, from grading point of view, from the property line.
Right. There was no seconder for your motion that included
Yes,
all
yeah,
of the
yeah,
variances,
yeah,
so
that's true,
yeah,
yeah,
I'm
that's
going to say that you're okay with all of them. Roy, was that your concern, was the accessory structure?
The two, yes, and the main building also.
All right. So here's what we're going to do.
Too many variances.
Yeah. Why don't we do them individually and see where that goes, and we'll deal with them in the order that we receive them here. So I'll look for a motion on the first two, because there is no point in dealing with B unless we get A, and I'm assuming if we're going to get a motion to approve A, we're going to get a motion to approve B. So go ahead. Do you want to go ahead? Oh, David, do you want to go ahead? And
It will be the same motion.
same motion?
That those two applications be approved, subject to the
Conditions?
the conditions in the staff's report.
Seconder for that, Hank. All in favor of the motion as amended? A and B only. So that is approved. Is there a motion then, or a revised motion for MV 2018C? Hank?
Just a point of clarification, I just want to be sure that 17D applies to the accessory building. It doesn't say in that wording that it does.
It doesn't.
It says in the memorandum.
In the memorandum, okay,
yeah.
that's fine, okay. All right, then my motion would be to deny applications 17C and 17D.
Is there a seconder for that?
I'll second that.
And seconded by Roy. All in favor? So that carries. So it looks like you're going back to the drawing board somewhat to deal with the accessory. The good news is that the main part of the application, I think, that relates to the home itself is approved.
Yes, I appreciate your assistance in making the modifications to my application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. So, the next application is 1 Highland Court, and this is minor variance application 2018-18A through E. The purpose of application MV 2018-18, the applicant is requesting relief from the requirements of the Town of Aurora zoning bylaw 6000-17 as amended. The applicant proposes to demolish the existing dwelling and replace it with a new 1-story detached dwelling. Application 2018-18A. To permit a reduced minimum northerly interior side yard setback for the proposed 1-story detached dwelling to 2 meters, thereby requiring a variance of 2.5 meters. Section 7.2 of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum interior side yard of 4.5 meters. Purpose of application 18B, to permit an eaves projection of 3.1 meters into the required northerly interior side yard, thereby requiring a variance of 2.4 meters. Section 4.20 of the zoning bylaw states that eaves may project 0.7 meters into any required yard. 18C, to permit a reduced minimum southerly interior side yard setback for the proposed 1-story detached dwelling to 4.3 meters, thereby requiring a variance of 0.2 meters. Section 7.2 of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum interior side yard of 4.5 meters. 18D, to permit an eaves projection of 0.8 meters into the required southerly interior side yard, thereby requiring a variance of 0.1 meters. Section 4.20 of the zoning bylaw states that eaves may project 0.7 meters into any required yard. 2018-18D, to permit a chimney that projects 2.9 meters into the required northerly interior side yard setback, thereby requiring a variance of 2.2 meters. Section 4.20 states chimneys may project 0.7 meters into any required yard. And the comments received from the Planning Division, none. Building Division, no comments received. Engineering Division, no comments. Operational Services, no comments, subject to conditions. Central York Fire, no comments received. Electra, York Region, and Lake Simcoe Regional Conservation Authority, no comments received. Applicant or agent, welcome.
Thank you. My name's Stephen Hunt, principal with Hunt Design Associates. We're the applicant's agent, and the applicant is here with me tonight. I won't be making a full presentation, but I'll make a couple of comments for the record. One, the owners of the home have been owners of the property and occupying the existing home since 2014. We asked that they canvass their neighbors on this application to give them full information, and they were successful in contacting at least 3 of the immediate neighbors, and at least unofficially told that there was no objection to the application. We also have reviewed the staff report, which we note is in support of the application. It meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act in terms of meeting the general intent of the official plan, the zoning bylaw. It's desirable development for the area, and in fact the variances are minor in nature. Variances for the interior side yards are to honor the existing side yard conditions for the existing home to be demolished. The home does not require any other variances in terms of building heights or coverages. It's not a monster home by any stretch. In fact, it's a bungalow. It's not unlike what is currently there. The owners love the property, they love the neighborhood, and want to remain. And I'll defer back to you, Mr. Chair, and I'll be available to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hunt. I'll look to the public. If there is anyone here who wishes to speak on this particular application. And I see no one coming forward, so I'll look to members of the committee for comments or questions.
Let me just start again.
Go right ahead, David.
Okay.
Floor is yours.
This figure here, this one here, do you have, my question is just because somehow unclear, it's just this distance from the property line, this distance here?
Maybe we can get the
Would it be
the site plan put up, please?
Yeah, this distance here.
Might be a little bit larger. So are you referring to this setback here?
Yes, that distance there, it is not clear on the,
2 meters.
2 meters, okay.
We've dimensioned at 2.03 meters to have some tolerance, but we're asking for 2 meters
Okay,
just for the
okay.
surveyor.
Okay, good, thank you. That's it.
Maybe before we go to any other, just leave it on there. And can you point out the chimney that is projecting in there as well? Where is that?
It's near the front.
Yeah, I thought so.
Okay.
I thought so.
Got it. Yeah, our drawings are a little bit difficult to see at best sometimes, so I'm appreciating you putting that up. Roy, did you have any?
I'm okay.
You're okay?
I just have a question. You indicated that the owners canvassed the neighbors, and you heard from 3 neighbors who are positive. Can you advise whether the neighbors to the north and the neighbors to the south, what was their view? Did you talk to them?
North and south and across the street.
Can you come forward there so that, thank you. It's a little difficult to hear
Good evening.
sometimes. Good evening, welcome.
My name is Slan Pikina and I'm an owner of the property.
So do you understand the question? Like where did you go and,
Yeah, I went to our neighbors. Actually, one of them is present here. John, thank you for coming. And there was no objection.
What address are
From
you,
this-
sir? What address are they?
5 Highland Court?
They're number 5. Okay,
Yeah.
so they're an immediate neighbor to you?
Yes.
Thank you.
From south side.
Thank you.
Yes. And there was no objections.
And what about the neighbor to the north,
To the north, he
where the
is-
house is under construction?
Yes, I spoke to him, and he said he will support us in any way. Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? You did mention that you did see the staff report, the conditions that are lined up or spelled out there. You're familiar with those, and you have no concerns about those?
No objections, no concerns. We will follow suit.
Thank you. Look to the committee for a motion on these applications. Roy?
Also move, Mr. Chairman, approval of application 18A, B, C, D, E, C, D, subject to the condition. It looks like it's a big, long condition. Yeah, just one condition, but it's very long, yeah. Subject to the one condition, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Seconder?
Just a correction. So basically on the here, it's written as D, it's supposed to be E.
A, B, C, D, E.
So it should be A
D, C, D, E,
to
that's what I
E.
said, yeah.
I know in the subject line it's so correct, but the listing of the condition, the applications, it's just a minor.
Before we ask for a second, just point of clarification, please.
Go ahead.
On the staff report, under general intent of the zoning bylaw, paragraph 3, it says, as shown on the applicant's site plan, the proposed dwelling will maintain the existing 2.03 meter interior side yard setback on the north side. And yet when I read 18A, we're actually seeking a variance, or is that referring to something different?
So clarification just through me to staff, please.
Through the chair. Yeah, the existing house has that same 2.03 meter setback. The zoning requirement is larger than that, so the existing house is non-complying, it's legal non-complying for that setback. So the applicant is proposing to build the new house to the same setback as the existing house for the north side yard.
Thanks for that.
Okay. So Roy's motion is before the committee.
I second.
So seconded by David. I'll call a question. All in favor? And that passes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of committee.
It's got some nice houses.
And the final item on applications is file number C 2018-3. Related file is NEHCD HPA-1702. This is a application for consent. Normally we deal with these at the beginning of the meeting because they're pretty straightforward, so I'll thank the applicant in advance of going through this for your patience, sir. And I'll just note that the purpose of the above, or the noted consent application, is to allow the creation of one new residential lot fronting on Mark Street. The subject lands are located on the north side of Mark Street, located at the northwest corner of Mark Street and Spruce Street, and the property is currently designated under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and it's located within the Northeast Old Aurora Heritage Conservation District. Currently there is a dwelling constructed in 1960, and the proposed severed parcel will have a lot area of 618 square meters and a lot frontage of 16.46 meters along Mark Street. Proposed retained parcel will have a lot area of 532.4 square meters, lot frontage of 15.26 meters on Mark Street. That's a little bit of background. Circulation comments are as follows. Planning Division, no comments, subject to conditions. Building Division, no comments received. Engineering Division, no comments, subject to conditions. Operational Services, no comments, subject to conditions. Legal Services, no comments, subject to conditions. Central York Fire Services, no comments received. Electra Utilities, no comments received. In York Region, no comments, subject to conditions. There's all the standard conditions that go into these consents. Applicant, I don't know if you want to make any presentation or comment at this point. Thank you, and I don't see anyone from the public on this, so I'll consider that dealt with. And I'll look to the committee for, or first of all, any questions or comments. Go ahead, David.
So I would assume, this is the comment to the staff, I would assume the lot sizes and also coverage for both the retained and severed lots, they're meeting the zoning bylaw requirements.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay. Another comment, I see condition number 4 and the recommendations is indicating that it's coming based on the memo from Glenn MacArthur and dated June 24. But if you look at the staff's comments in here, actually only the first bullet point is coming from Glenn MacArthur. The rest, they're coming from a different section, and that is from Patrick Ngo. So I'm just wondering in terms of creating the conditions. My understanding is you have, I don't know, because maybe of reorganization, now it's one department or section, I'm not sure, or that if that still two different sections, then the conditions will be created by those specific sections. So I'm wondering, you have put all together under one person, under Green Earth and the date June 25, but in the reports you have the other ones by Ngo, which are actually dated, May 3, 2017.
Yeah. Go ahead, Antonio.
Through the chair, this condition set by Patrick, Patrick reviewed it as this consent file was, the file lapsed, so he had to reapply. So Patrick originally took aye on the conditions last year, and now Glenn reached out with the new conditions, and Glenn stated that conditions set by Patrick from C 2017 were to be addressed now. There are no new conditions, just the set conditions that were set from last year's consent application.
Yeah, this is an actual, we dealt with this on April 11th in 2017. The year has come by, and we're unfortunately weren't able to satisfy all the conditions within the year, so that's why this is coming back. Roy, anything?
I'm okay.
You're okay?
It looks familiar.
Yeah. Hank, go ahead.
Okay, I wasn't around when this was addressed previously, so, well, I was around, but not on the committee.
Good point.
Anyway, I have some questions. I did go and do a site inspection, and so I just need some clarification. So I note from the site plan that one driveway is on Mark Street and the other driveway is going to access from Spruce. Is that correct?
That's to staff.
You might as well come forward up. I'm sure I'll have a question for you, sir.
Good evening. That owner of the property, 36 Mark Street, Mr. Chair, member of the committee, yes, that is true. I have a site plan.
Thank you. That makes it much clearer than the drawing I've got.
Yeah.
Okay, the second comment or question I have is, I noted when I was there was a number of trees that had red bands around them. Are those the trees that are going to be taken down?
Not all of them. I'm still waiting for the confirmation of the arborist report. I submitted the arborist report. It's with the forestry department. I haven't received it back.
Okay. Third comment, there's a very large hedge which goes along the Spruce Street side. And looking at the property, to me, it would appear that that spruce or cedar hedge is probably not on your property. It's probably a municipal property.
It's not, yes.
Is that correct? It's on municipal property?
That is correct, yes.
So is that hedge going to come down, or is it going to stay up?
No, it's going to stay only the part which is the new driver for the Spruce Street. That part is going to be cut.
Okay. So now I'm going to direct a comment to staff. Okay, regarding that very large hedge, is that in any way an impediment to doing any of the servicing that will be required for these lots?
Well, they would have issued a permit.
Through the chair, that would have been looked at by the engineering, by engineering staff, and I'm just looking through this to see if there are any conditions, but that would be from engineering, that whether there's anything that would, any impediments for servicing. So that would be in their comments. I don't have that right in front of me, but I'm just looking at that now.
Okay, thanks, Marty. And one final comment, again relating to this hedge. It seems to me that at the corner of Spruce and Mark, that hedge could potentially be a hazard in terms of sight lines for traffic. And has that all been reviewed by municipal staff to determine whether or not some of that hedge needs to be removed?
Through the chair, that has been reviewed, and the applications are given to the engineering division and then to each individual staff based on the application and which staff needs to look at it. So if there is anything that needs to be looked at from a traffic perspective, then our traffic analyst does review it. And in this case, going back to your previous question, there was a recommended condition from engineering in the memo from Glenn MacArthur that comments made by engineering capital delivery for consent be addressed as part of the consent application, and that resubmission of any previous document shall include the current consent application number. So there was a memo that looked at that, and that's the only condition that was recommended from the engineering division.
Yeah, I noticed one of the conditions at the top of page 4, that the applicant shall demonstrate that the existing municipal services have sufficient capacity for the proposed severed and retained lots. So I would assume that would have to come forward and that condition satisfied. And so are you familiar with all of the conditions, sir, that are there, and you're okay with everything that's...
Yes, most of the conditions already been satisfied, even for that condition. Just to note, that unit, that property already had a unit in the basement, registered unit at the city, so it's 36A, with a separate hydrometer, separate gas, everything was separate. But anyway, right now it's disconnected because I want to demolish the property. But it was actually 2 separate units over there.
Okay. All right. So there would be no concern from your perspective.
Yeah, but
in terms
again,
of capacity,
I submitted required letters to the department, infrastructure department.
Are you comfortable with the 1 year?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so I'll look to the committee. Any other questions or comments, David?
Comment. Just following what you are saying, I didn't want to comment like comment number 4, breakpoint number, first breakpoint, which he talks about the submission or the comments made by staff, and the other breakpoint which I've just talked about. I sort of get worried because something like has not been checked, and we don't even have the benefit of looking at the comments staff provided. Like Hank asked a lot of questions there. I would detail that some of those questions he was asking, maybe the comments which have already been provided by staff, but we don't have that benefit. I look at them. What I would suggest, if there are still a lot of comments maybe in future, that we should have the benefit of looking at those comments. Because if, for example, if we approve, and later on with a problem in terms of capacity, downstream capacity, which usually is verified during site plan application, then it's already too late. So my comment is if we would have the benefit of looking at those comments, rather than assuming that, okay, this will be dealt with the staff and will be okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think just to wrap it all up, I mean, there was an application that came before the committee in April of 2017. There would have been conditions there. It might have been a good idea to include those with the circulation package, and that's just a comment to staff more than anything. Okay. So I'll look to the committee for a motion on this second consent application for this property.
Through the chair, I move that the consent application be approved subject to the conditions in the staff's report.
Thank you. Seconder?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Roy? All in favor? Thank you for your patience, sir.
No problem. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Okay. So, any new business? from anyone at the table?
Yes, we got an email from Mate telling us that he is leaving Aurora, going to, which is called, I'll say, congratulations, and definitely will be missing you. You've been, you've been the planner for this committee. You've also been the secretary treasurer. So you are really the man of all. You can do it all. So we'll be missing you very much.
Could we give him a hand, Mr. Chairman?
You certainly may.
Speech? Gotcha.
Thank you, David, for the comments. And yeah, I've been here for several years, working, coming in and answering questions, and in both roles as the planner and acting as a secretary treasurer whenever that's been needed. So yeah, it's been my pleasure to work with the committee and to work with all of you, and with Grace obviously as well. And so you'll be missed, and I'll be moving on to a new position as a senior planner with the town of Witchert Stouffville. So that's a great opportunity for me. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to, on behalf of Grace, and who isn't here, I know that she flipped an email there to you, Marty, and but from the chair's perspective and position this evening, on behalf of all of us, I too want to thank you for all of the service and your professional approach to providing information and helping us get through some of these more difficult applications. And I'll also take the opportunity to, as we did earlier, officially welcome Antonio, and look forward to working with you now that you're in the seat. So Marty, congratulations to you. I don't know if you're going to be working with various committees in your new capacity, but hopefully, as you indicated to us, that our paths do cross again. So best wishes, best of luck.
Thank you, and yeah, I will be working with different committees, and as for this committee, you'll be in good hands with Antonio.
Thank you. Any other new business?
Nope.
I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Maybe just a question.
Oh.
The Henderson file. Any news?
Antonio, any news? We've just passed the buck.
You're on the hot seat.
Any news on, you know which one we're talking about? Henderson? Is that coming back that you're aware of? I thought that was going to.
Through the chair, I am aware of the Henderson file. I haven't looked into it quite extensively, but it will be coming up soon. So yeah.
There's a letter in today's Aurora, eh?
I haven't read it yet.
It's chairperson of some committee.
Any comment there, Marty?
Yeah, through the chair, the application, there was a second submission brought in, as you know, earlier in the year, and it was sent to peer review, and there were comments sent back to the applicant. The applicant is now working to address the comments, and they will be coming in with another submission. Basically, whenever our peer reviewers and municipal staff are satisfied that all of their concerns have been addressed, then, or to the extent possible, then it'll come back to the committee when staff are ready to make a recommendation on the applications.
Okay, great. Anything else from anyone else?
Yes.
No? So I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night there, Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Roy.
I guess what's her name will be coming to the meeting? What's the other planner's name, that lady?